a privilege and a pleasure for me to be here at the FCC. I am here to speak on India-Bhutan relations. We are a landlocked country and in the eastern Himalayas with only two immediate neighbors, China in the north and India in the south. Our territory is almost entirely mountainous with a series of small valleys fed by clean rivers flowing north to south. Bhutan is on the south-facing side of the Himalayas. Therefore, our borders with China run along very high mountains, with most of the passes covered by snow and quite inaccessible in the winter months. On the other hand, our borders with India open up to the plains of Assam and West Bengal and provide us with our access to the outside world. This has had a very strong impact on both the political and economic development of Bhutan. According to archaeological artifacts, Bhutan was inhabited about 4,000 years ago, but our recorded history starts from about the 7th century when Buddhism came to Bhutan. And for a long time, Bhutan was a very loose grouping of regional entities centered around its different valleys. And each valley had their own rulers or religious leaders. Our country was united as a nation state very effectively only in the 17th century by the great religious leader and statesman called Namgyel. And this year we are celebrating the 400th anniversary of his arrival from Tibet to Bhutan. He being a very great religious leader, and Bhutan being a Buddhist country, and also having great administrative and statesman-like qualities, he was able to bring all the rulers in the different valleys together and all the valleys under one administrative rule. And he established a dual system of government. Dual means one branch looked after religious affairs and the other branch looked after the temporal responsibilities. And as time passed, this system gradually began to weaken. And again, the local chieftains and the rulers began to assert themselves, and there used to be internal strife and discord. And it was only in the second half of the 19th century that a strong leader again emerged. And he was known as Jimmy Namgyel, the Tronsop Penlo, the governor of the central region of Bhutan. He was the one who also fought several battles and wars with the British in India. And after him, his son Ugyen Wangchuck took over from him. And Ugyen Wangchuck was a very, very wise statesman. And based on the strength of the Tronsop Penlo that was established by his father, he emerged as the most outstanding of all the leaders in Bhutan. And all the other rulers of the valleys and the religious heads in Bhutan decided that it would be best for Bhutan if they elected him as the first hereditary monarch of Bhutan. So in 1907, 17 December, they all came together, signed an agreement, and he was installed as the first hereditary monarch of Bhutan. Now, Ugyen Wangchuck brought peace and stability to Bhutan. And his son, Jimmy Wangchuck, who took over from him, consolidated the monarchy system till 1952 when he passed away. And then his son, the third king, Jimmy Dorji Wangchuck, took over from him. And the third king was the one who started the process of development and modern system of government. He established the National Assembly, he established the judiciary, and he also established the cabinet system of government. But he also died at a young age, very suddenly from a heart attack in 1972, at a young age of 44. And his son, Jimmy Singh Wangchuck, who was actually a teenager at that time, had to take over. And the fourth king, Jimmy Singh Wangchuck, of course, in his 34 years of rule, did a lot for Bhutan. And he brought rapid socio-economic progress. He promoted rich culture and tradition to strengthen our identity. He also strengthened the security of the country, and he skillfully guided the nation into the 21st century as a responsible but a low-key but responsible member of the international community. At the same time, he prepared the country for very far-reaching political changes. And before he retired, he laid the groundworks for the parliamentary system of government with a written constitution. And then he decided to abdicate in 2006, December, since all the preparations had been made for the introduction of parliamentary democracy. And his son, the present king, took over. And in the last 10 years, in his role as the symbol of unity and the upholder of the Constitution and as constitutional monarch, he has ensured a smooth transition from absolute monarchy to parliamentary democracy in our country. The first parliamentary elections were held in 2008, and for the very first time, we had a democratically elected government in Bhutan. 5 years later, it's a 5-year term, the second parliamentary elections were held in 2013. The people, the voters, decided to see, and in hindsight, I take off my hat to them. The first government was actually very capable, but the people decided to see how another party would perform. And in their wisdom, they felt that maybe a strong party should not be embedded in the beginning of democracy. And they decided to vote the opposition party into power. So now the previous opposition party is in power. And in 2018, we will have the next round of parliamentary elections. So this is just the background for a brief history of Bhutan. Now I'd like to also speak a little bit on Bhutan's foreign policy. When South Asia was under colonial rule, Bhutan's foreign policy was mainly aimed at ensuring that we would not be colonized also. Having lost the war with the British over the Duars adjoining Bhutan and India, our leaders decided to cede some of our territory in the foothills of Bhutan, and they focused on ensuring that the British would not have any presence inside Bhutan. And as a result, our leaders decided to follow a policy of self-imposed isolation. In 1910, that is shortly after monarchy was established, Bhutan signed a treaty with the British. And there's an important clause in this which I would like to quote. And the clause says, the British government undertakes to exercise no interference in the internal administration of Bhutan. On its part, the Bhutanese government agrees to be guided by the advice of the British government in regard to its external relations. End of quote. This article and the policy of self-imposed isolation was the basis of our foreign policy until the British left South Asia. After that, to take our relations forward with independent India, a treaty of friendship with India was signed in 1949. A similar clause to the one which I have just quoted was also included as Article 2 in the Friendship Treaty with India. And I'll quote, it's the same article, but I'll quote it again. It goes, the government of India undertakes to exercise no interference in the internal administration of Bhutan. On its part, the government of Bhutan agrees to be guided by the advice of the government of India in regard to its external relations. End of quote. So from 1949 till 1972, Bhutan's foreign policy was based on adjusting to the new political scenario in South Asia and the changes taking place in the rest of the world following the end of the Second World War. Our leaders that mainly the Third King, recognized the importance of having very close relations with India, but they remained cautious about engaging with the rest of the world. Bhutan's foreign policy under our Third King, who ruled from 1952 to 1972, was to end the policy of self-imposed isolation, establish very close relations with India, and work towards Bhutan's entry into the United Nations. So that was the foreign policy of our third king and Bhutan's foreign policy. The third phase of our foreign policy, which we have been following since 1972, was crafted by our fourth king, His Majesty Jimmy Singh Yongchu. This policy is based on the following principles and objectives, and I'll just read it out. Number one, friendship with India will be the cornerstone of our foreign policy. Number two, Bhutan should join important international organizations such as the Non-Aligned Movement to enhance our status as a sovereign independent country. Number three, we should refrain from establishing diplomatic relations with the permanent members of the UN Security Council to avoid the complications and the difficult push and pulls of international power politics. Number four, we must foster good relations with all countries, even in the absence of diplomatic relations, particularly with the P5 countries because of their importance, and in the case of China, because it is also an immediate neighbor. Number five, we should establish diplomatic relations with countries that have good standing and are forthcoming with development assistance without attaching political conditions, and also with close neighbors and small countries sharing similar interests and aspirations. Number six, this is just a principle, we should project our unique national identity to strengthen our image as a sovereign independent country. Number seven, we must make good use of development assistance and work towards achieving economic self-reliance to enhance our sovereignty. So based on this policy, Bhutan engaged gradually with the rest of the world and had established diplomatic relations with 25 countries by 2009. That's not much, 25 countries by 2009. In 2012, we made a bid for a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council and established diplomatic relations with 28 countries, more than double of what we had, because they promised to vote for us. Of course, we did not win the elections, but we gained some good experience. But after that, we are now back to our old established policy of a gradual and carefully considered approach regarding the expansion of formal diplomatic relations. So 2012 was a departure from our policy, actually, just so that we could get some votes in the UN Security Council election. Now we should look at India-Bhutan relations. For us in Bhutan, India is the land of Lord Buddha and Guru Padmasambhava, who brought Buddhism to our country. So religious and cultural ties have always been an important bond of goodwill and friendship between our two countries. The strong foundations, so India-Bhutan relations, I'll go straight to the modern India-Bhutan relations. The strong foundations for the excellent relations between India and Bhutan were laid by Prime Minister Nehru and His Majesty Jimmy Doji Yongchu, the third king of Bhutan. With the departure of the British, India was looked upon now not only as a close neighbor, but as a friend that could help Bhutan emerge from its self-imposed isolation and progress on the path of socio-economic development. This feeling of friendship and confidence in each other as close neighbors was reciprocated by Prime Minister Nehru, who reached out to Bhutan. And Prime Minister Nehru really reached out to Bhutan. This is something which we appreciate in Bhutan. He invited His Majesty the Third King for a state visit to India as chief guest for the Republic Day celebrations in 1954. Now this, we look upon it as a very remarkable gesture of friendship towards a young king. He was only 26 or so at that time. And a very small neighbor, a very undeveloped, least developed small neighbor. We had not even established any of the basic infrastructures like motor roads, telecommunications, electricity. We were really undeveloped because we were following a policy of self-imposed isolation. So Prime Minister Nehru reaching out and inviting our third king as chief guest for the Republic Day celebrations in 1954 was actually a very, very remarkable gesture of friendship. In another remarkable gesture, Prime Minister Nehru, at the age of 69, accompanied by his daughter Indira Gandhi, traveled by horseback, by yak, over high mountain passes from Sikkim to Bhutan, and made a historic visit to Bhutan in 1958. He spoke to the people of Bhutan in the grounds of Ugin Peri Palace in a speech that was translated by the third king himself. And there he declared India's policy regarding Bhutan. And I would like to quote the relevant paragraph. It goes, "Some may think that since India is a great and powerful country and Bhutan is a small one, the former might wish to exercise pressure on Bhutan. It is therefore essential that I make it clear to you that our only wish is that you should remain an independent country, choosing your own way of life and taking the path of progress according to your will. At the same time, we too should live with mutual goodwill. We are members of the same Himalayan family and should live as friendly neighbors, helping each other. Freedom of both Bhutan and India should be safeguarded so that none from outside can do harm to it." End of quote. Now, following this historic visit by Prime Minister Nehru, and with his encouragement to come out of self-imposed isolation, our third king decided to end the policy of self-imposed isolation, and Bhutan embarked on the process of planned development with the launching of our first five-year plan in 1961. The first two five-year plans were funded entirely by India. Basic infrastructure like motor roads, telecommunications, schools, hospitals, and administrative centers were built. Even after the UN agencies and friendly donor countries had come forward with development assistance, India has remained by far our largest development partner. Now, what we appreciate in Bhutan about Indian assistance is that it has been given to help us become self-reliant. When we began planned development, we did not have any qualified manpower. India provided both technical assistance, financial assistance, and all the experts that were required. We had Indian experts and advisors in most of our ministries until our own officials gained experience and were able to take over from them after about 20 years. As our bilateral relations grew, the office of a special representative of India was opened in our capital in Thimphu in 1968. This is the first time that a foreign mission was opened in Bhutan in 1968. A resident mission of Bhutan with a special representative was established in Delhi in 1971. The offices of the two special representatives were upgraded to full-fledged embassies in 1978. As trade and commercial activities increased, the office of the State Trading Corporation and Royal Bhutan Customs in Calcutta was upgraded to a consulate general. Likewise, the liaison office of the Embassy of India in Phinsuling, in our border town in the south, and this is Bhutan's biggest commercial town, was upgraded to a consulate general in 2007. Now, on the international scene and regarding our international relations, India helped us to become a member of the Colombo Plan in 1962 and the Universal Postal Union in 1969. Bhutan's aspiration to become a member of the United Nations received India's full support. India sponsored our candidature, and we were admitted to the United Nations in 1971. As we did not have a trained foreign service at that time, we requested the services of an Indian diplomat to help us set up our mission in the United Nations in New York. We really had no expertise at that time. So Ambassador A.N. Ram, he later became ambassador to Bhutan. That time he was a diplomat. He helped us to set up our mission in New York. Bhutan and India have been cooperating very closely in the international arena. We support each other's positions on all issues of mutual concern and interest. Security is a very important area of mutual understanding and cooperation between India and Bhutan. The importance we attach to each other's security concerns is reflected in the new Article 2 of the India-Bhutan Friendship Treaty signed in 2007, which reads, I quote, "In keeping with the abiding ties of close friendship and cooperation between Bhutan and India, the government of the Kingdom of Bhutan and the government of the Republic of India shall cooperate closely with each other on issues relating to their national interests. Neither government shall allow the use of its territory for activities harmful to the national security and interest of the other." End of quote. The signing of the India-Bhutan Friendship Treaty in 2007 reflects both the maturity of the excellent relations between our two countries, as well as our commitment to work closely together to safeguard each other's national interests. This updated treaty provides us with a renewed framework for further strengthening our exemplary friendship, understanding and cooperation in a new era of an increasingly globalized world. So all the treaties, the two articles between the British and the 1949 treaty were the same. This one reflects the present state of India-Bhutan relations and how we should take our relations forward in the 21st century. We always say this, and we say this not by rote, but it sounds like by rote. India-Bhutan relations provide an excellent example of how a large and powerful country and a very small neighbor can enjoy exceptionally close ties of friendship and cooperation with each other. But this did not happen by accident or just by good fortune. A lot of effort and a lot of cooperation has been put into it. It should be noted that while the leaders of India have been magnanimous in their approach to Bhutan, and here I would like to say, the leaders of India from Prime Minister Nehru down to the present leadership have always been magnanimous in their approach to Bhutan. Our leaders in turn have responded with appreciation and with very pragmatic wisdom in understanding geopolitical ground realities. As a landlocked, south-facing Himalayan country, the key to Bhutan's development and prosperity will always lie in close friendship and cooperation with India. Our leaders recognized this and decided that friendship with India should be the cornerstone of our foreign policy. Our leaders have also ensured that mutual trust and understanding is always the hallmark of the close friendship and cooperation between India and Bhutan. We have been very consistent and clear that Bhutan will always support India in any way we can when it concerns India's national interest. And in return, we also have full confidence and trust that India will stand by Bhutan in the same spirit. This is the principle that ensured the success of India-Bhutan relations, and it will continue to guide us in the years ahead. So thank you.